Today I'm talking about vulnerability. Vulnerability is one of those sticky concepts at work, isn't it? I mean, when to be vulnerable, when not to be, where's the line, how do I know when I've crossed it? Vulnerability is a bit of a minefield. So today I've got some insights directly from a bunch of amazing and real corporate leaders out there I've been speaking to about this exact topic, just for you. Hi, it's Jo with jowiseLeadership.com. Vulnerability has been coming up a lot in the coaching conversations I'm having and also at leadership conferences I'm speaking at a lot lately. So today's video is about how the hell we as professionals can navigate through vulnerability at work, particularly when we're first starting to work with vulnerability. Most workplaces encourage vulnerability these days. Yeah, please be vulnerable at work, but not in front of your team, not in front of the execs. But apart from that, and don't be vulnerable in front of the board. I mean, we wouldn't want it to impact your brand negatively, would we? From what I see, that's the type of message that many professionals are getting at work about vulnerability. So today I'm sharing a few insights to help you get clear on what vulnerability is for you. Firstly, the queen of vulnerability, Brene Brown, she defines vulnerability as uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. Woohoo! Now that sounds fun, doesn't it? But before you say, vulnerability is not for me, Brene Brown also says vulnerability is the birthplace of joy, courage, empathy, creativity, love, and belonging. Those things all make you an effective and positively impactful leader and human being. If vulnerability is new for you, I encourage to use what I call conscious vulnerability at work. This will help you work out where your vulnerability line is. That is, what feels right for you and works for you in your role, workplace, and your career. Conscious vulnerability is about having awareness of what vulnerabilities you're sharing and how others may be able to learn from it. The three main things that come up in real discussions about vulnerability at work seem to be the when, the who, and the how of vulnerability. Let's start with the when to be vulnerable. I recommend as you're developing these skills around vulnerability to share once you've worked out a bit of your learnings for yourself. For example, about 5 years ago, I lost my temper in a training room in front of participants. Now, I'm a professional trainer and I'm really good at it. So losing my temper in a classroom, that's a very vulnerable place for me. That day in the workshop, I was delivering a training and there was a student that was being verbally abusive to other students. I lost my temper with said person. So to bring you back to the when, I chose not to talk about how vulnerable I felt that day in the classroom because I hadn't worked it out myself yet. I hadn't learnt from it. I hadn't worked through it myself. But I dealt with it that day, and I'm actually pretty proud of how I recovered in class that day. But for me, that day was actually too early for me to share my vulnerability about it. But now, as time has passed, I can now talk about it in ways that help other leaders be prepared for unplanned situations that come up in meetings or interactions with their team members. And of course, any other learnings that they choose to take from it. Do I like sharing a story of where I didn't do something perfectly right? No, of course I don't. It's very uncomfortable for me. Yet I share it because I've learnt from that situation. And I know that others learn from me sharing it with them. Let's move on to the who to be vulnerable with at work. The leaders that I spoke to about this, we all agreed for you to be respectful to yourself and to others, share vulnerability when you feel the audience has earned the right to hear it. What I mean here is if you've got a personal and vulnerable story to share, and for example, if I'm in a meeting with people that are not being respectful to others or maybe not listening to each other, I'd probably choose not to be vulnerable with them that day. And maybe I choose another way to demonstrate a learning rather than sharing my vulnerability that's quite personal to me. How does that work for you? So what about the how to be vulnerable? My rule is to only share what feels right for you and share it in a way that feels right for you. That might be to share it in a one-on-one conversation rather than a team meeting, or the other way around. Now notice that I said what feels right for you, not feels comfortable. Because it's not going to feel comfortable. And let's face it, comfortable and vulnerability really do not go together. And finally, and you're not going to like this, vulnerability comes with risk. Always with the risk. But trust me, when I'm in a situation where there's an opportunity for me to be vulnerable and I don't, it feels like I'm not being real, not being authentic or showing who I truly am. And that is a risk that I'm no longer willing to take. So hey, here's your chance to start here with a bit of vulnerability. Share in the comments below what this brings up for you. And when you're ready to take things to a new level in your career, leadership, and life, click on the link below and let's have a conversation about how you can make that happen by having a free strategy session direct with me so that you are not in this same position again this time next year. Click on the link below and see my schedule now.